Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cameron Smith. I'm joined today by Sonu and Chris. We are all studying aerospace engineering here at RPI. We're just going to give it another minute to see if anybody else is going to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation. Aerospace engineering. Like I said a minute ago, my name is Cameron Smith. I am a junior studying aerospace engineering at RPI, and I'm very excited to give you an introduction to my major today. And I have two other members on the talk today who will also be sharing their experiences with you. But just a quick intro about me. I'm originally from Warrenton, Virginia, which is in Northern Virginia. It's about an hour west of DC. Here at RPI, I'm also in a fraternity. I'm part of Engineering Ambassadors, and then I do a little bit of other clubs on campus. Unfortunately, right now, due to COVID, those activities have died down, but I'm also a member of the club water polo team. And then here's just a couple of pictures of me with my friends, family, and dog, and I will now turn it over to Sonu so he can introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sonu. I'm originally from the New York City area, and I'm also a junior studying aeronautical engineering. So at my time at RPI, I've spent a lot of time in certain clubs like RPI Engineering Ambassadors, as Cameron said. I'm part of the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers, where I'm a mentor for a bunch of freshmen this year, which has been really exciting. I've spent time as the president of the RPI Flying Club, where here you can see one of the airplanes we fly in the Flying Club. of trying to get my license through that club. And recently, given the situation, I've gotten really into hiking. So you can see a few pictures of my hiking trips I've done last semester. It's been a really good time.
All right, great. Thank you, Sonu. So just to start off, yeah, Chris, you can come in and introduce yourself too.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Walter. I'm currently a junior studying aerospace mechanical engineering. Like those guys, I try and get active where I can. I'm involved with engineering ambassadors, also in a fraternity on campus. I actually was working on getting my pilot's license along with Sonu in the flying club. I took the ground school last semester the semester before when COVID started, and like him, I've been trying to get into outdoor stuff, so I'm hoping to get some stuff for some backpacking trips this summer with a bunch of buddies.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, just to give a brief overview of the actual coursework for aerospace engineering. This is just a quick little flow chart to kind of explain the different types of courses that you would take throughout your time at RPI when you're pursuing your major in aerospace or aeronautical engineering. So to start, during freshman and sophomore year, you take a lot of core courses, both in the general engineering department and in the main, which is mechanical aerospace and nuclear engineering department. And you take those a lot with other mechanical and nuclear engineers. And so those will be courses like Calculus 1, Calculus 2, general physics, and then some introductory courses into engineering analysis and strengths of materials. Then after that, you move into the foundational courses, which are where you start to differ a little bit from other mechanical and nuclear engineers. So these courses are Aerospace Structures and Materials and Aerodynamics 1, and those are typically courses that you will take during your experience with Summer Arch. And then once you have that foundation in general aeronautics and aerospace, this is where the classes really differ and you start to see a little bit branching out. So on top, you have labs and your aerospace technical elective, and Sonu is going to talk a little bit more about those on the next slide. And then in the middle, you see computation intensive elective. So there are 3 courses that you can take for this. There's Introduction to Finite Elements, Computational Fluid Dynamics, or Design Optimization. And so depending on your interests and what you think you want to do after your time at RPI, you can take one of those classes. So for example, I'm in Introduction to Finite Elements right now, and a lot of that class is working with CAD and understanding how to do simulations doing simulations with the models that you design. And then lastly, you do Flight Mechanics elective, which can be space vehicle or space flight mechanics, where obviously you focus on orbital mechanics. There's a fixed wing course and there's also a rotorcraft course. And then once you do all of those, you combine all of the things you've learned, and that culminates in your capstone design elective, which you will take sometime during your senior year. And then just in the background, while you're taking all of those courses throughout the 4 years, you have your HOS requirements, which are your humanities, arts, and sciences. And then you also have free electives that you take throughout the duration of your time at RPI. And so now Sonu is going to get a little bit more into the labs on the next slide.
For aerospace structures and materials. He was doing work on structural analysis and analyzing the material within a plane without actually like taking it apart, but just using vibrations to tell how the health of it was going. And that I'm doing for credit. So in that case, I'm not getting paid for anything. I'm doing it on my own time, ideally for 6 hours a week, and then reporting the findings or any progress I make back to the professor at week intervals. And then 2 weeks, I give a formal report. So within this, you're not getting paid for anything. You're mainly just doing it for research and the experience. This is different than the full-time undergraduate research program. So in that case, you will be able to take either a summer or a semester off, and you'll be working with that professor, doing research with them, and actually getting paid if they have the funding for that. So the experience for that is obviously if you are doing your RSUA semester, it's super helpful because if you weren't necessarily trying to work for a company and research seemed a lot more interesting to you, you can reach out to a professor, and if they have the funding for it and the space, you can join their team. So in terms of getting involved with research, it's something that's not something that everyone does. But for the people that do, generally the ways that they go about it is they find a professor that they have worked with in classes. And if they talked about their work or they looked into the work that they were doing and they enjoyed it, they'll go out of their way and speak with them and say, hey, you know, I like the work you're doing. Is it possible I could join your team? That isn't the only way that you can do it. Another often way is your advisors at RPI will oftentimes send out emails to you saying like, hey, there are these research opportunities with these professors doing this work. And you can just, you know, apply to it through them and say that you would like to work with them, give your application, and then if they like it, they can bring you onto the team. So it's something that at no point do you have to do. It's something that I highly recommend because not only does it look great on a resume, it's one of the few times that you feel like you can truly go out of your way and just start learning without having to worry about exams or anything. Because at the end of the day, like the only thing you are doing is work for the like point of growing whatever you're working on. Like you do get a grade depending on like how well you do with that work, but it's not an exam or anything. It's mainly just like if you put in the time and effort, you really get rewarded by it because you are truly learning about something that you are passionate about, and you can kind of choose your own path with that. And RPI as a whole is involved in a lot more research than you might think. You know, on here, I talk about the fact that we actually have a lot of cancer treatments that we do research on, as well as the 3D skin printing that we also are involved in. But beyond that, we have everything from aerospace down to chemistry and everything in between. So, you know, even if you're not entirely focused on just doing aerospace, I'm sure you can look around and get involved with some other research projects if the professor wants you working with them. So at RPI, there are a lot of clubs, especially for aerospace. The two that are most worth mentioning are the Rensselaer Rocket Society, which I was involved in for a little while, in which you build a rocket for competition level. And you'll go through and there'll be certain requirements such as getting readings at certain atmospheres, being able to launch a small rover from the rocket that you send up and have it safely land down and function on the ground. So they will give you these design requirements for the competitions. You'll have to meet them. And so it's something that you'll work on for a semester or two and then go to the competitions. Normally, obviously right now with COVID, it's a little more difficult, so they're not holding those in person. But in a normal semester, you'd be traveling for an hour out to some launch site cleared by the FAA and launching these rockets as high up as they're allowed to go, and then getting the information to see how well you do. And Sonu can talk about Design Build Fly.
Yeah, so I've been a member of Design Build Fly ever since my freshman year. It's one of the reasons, or it's one of the clubs that I saw when I visited RPI as a high school student, and I really enjoyed what they were doing. The DBF is similar to Rocket Society in that we build an RC aircraft, every year for a competition run by the AIAA, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. We have competitions annually either in Tucson, Arizona or Wichita, Kansas. Obviously, as you may guess, this year it's been canceled, and we built, but even though we still designed our entire plane virtually in CAD and in software, and we're now trying to build a flight simulator to help simulate the flight on a computer, and we're going to send that over to the competition people whenever that's complete. But overall, both of these clubs as a whole are really a really good way to join the engineering design process, even as a freshman. You know, you're going to have stuff to do as a freshman. People there are really helpful. I learned a lot from working at DBF, and I was also part of Rocket Society for a little bit as a freshman as well. And I can tell you that both these clubs, as well as all the other project teams on campus, which is a really good experience to have.
Yeah, so before we go into talking about each of the awesome opportunities that the three of us have had throughout our time at RPI, specifically relating to our careers in our degrees in aerospace engineering, I see a question in the chat that says, what are the summer arch program that you mentioned? Do most students in this major take additional summer courses? So just before we talk about this, because a lot of us will mention summer arch over the course of the next 3 slides, summer arch is a program that nearly all Rensselaer students participate in. So the premise is after your sophomore year, before your junior year, you stay on campus and take courses at RPI with your cohort that you enter into school with. And so while last summer it was unfortunately virtual due to the pandemic, I was taking those foundational courses that I mentioned earlier, Aerospace Structures and Materials and Aerodynamics 1. And so this is where it gives you a chance to bond with your class a little bit more and engage in some fun extracurricular activities once we're back in person, obviously. But so this is a time where you take classes over the summer, and then a semester during your junior year, you have the opportunity to go away and do some kind of research, internship, co-op experience, whichever you can find, and have the ability to do, and make it whatever you want. So for my arch away experience, I actually interned with NASA last fall, which I'll mention in a little bit. But so during the summer after my freshman year, I was actually not doing anything formal. I wasn't able to obtain an internship, so I just stayed at home and did some personal development. So I didn't have any coding experience prior to entering college. So I just did some self-paced courses in Python and MATLAB. And then during the fall semester last fall, I was fortunate enough to obtain an internship with NASA, where I was assisting the aeroacoustics team on the Space Launch System and looking at turbulent flow features for a section of the Space Launch System, which is NASA's next heavy lift rocket. And then this coming summer, I will be participating in a structural engineering internship with Boeing. It was supposed to be in Huntington Beach, California, but again, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it will be remote. But all these opportunities have definitely helped me develop beyond just the formal coursework that I've done so far during my time at RPI. And I will now turn it over to Chris so he can talk about his experiences.
Hey guys, so out of my freshman year, I was lucky enough to get a job working with General Dynamics Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut. So as you can see there, that's actually one of the, I think, Virginia class submarines that was in the production facility on one of the days. So outside of the work I was doing, which was FEA analysis for structural components within the sub, we were allowed to actually go to the shipyard. So I was walking around and seeing one of these submarines being built, which was amazing. And then we were able to walk inside of it. But that was the only cool physical part of the work. Outside of that, I was mainly just working with a computer, doing FEA analysis on components for shock and making sure nothing was breaking within the sub if an explosion went off. But after that, I was working with Collins Aerospace, where I was doing production support for them at a Pratt Whitney production facility. So what you can see there is actually a picture at the facility that I was working on. And I think those are PW1100s for the Neo Airbus. But what you see there is actually much more than they normally were doing. So during that summer is when COVID was hitting, and they had to cut engine production in half because airliners were not ordering the engines. So there were actually never that many engines up, unfortunately. But when I was there, I was able to see these several million-dollar engines being built, and the parts that we were providing for Pratt Whitney from Collins, if there were any issues on it, such as damage to them, scratches, nicks, we would be brought in to say, you know, this was too bad. We need to toss this part out, get you a new one, or this is good. You can either sand this down, repair it, and get it back to the standard that was needed for the FAA for no damage. And this upcoming summer, I'm going to be working with Collins Aerospace again under a different group, where I'm going to be working with more FEA analysis for their air management system, doing a mixture of FEA and fluid analysis on their systems. So I will now send it to Sonia.
Yeah, I guess while we wait for questions coming in the chat, guys, do you want to talk about, you know, your favorite course that you've taken at RPI so far, specifically for aerospace?
Sonia? I think for me so far, I've enjoyed orbital mechanics probably the most, just because it's like for me, the main reason I joined and tried to do aerospace engineering was I just love space. So this is kind of the first class I'm really getting involved with work directly related to space and kind of the orbits of everything we're working with. I think we got some coming in now. There you go.
Yeah, so see, the first two questions in the chat are pretty related. So what was the application process like for your internships? And how did you find/apply for those internships and jobs? Did RPI help you ultimately in acquiring those positions?
For me, RPI didn't help me on mine. Mine mainly I had to go out of my way to get. The General Dynamics one, I knew a manager because I lived close to the site that he helped me through the application process. And for Collins Aerospace, there was the career fair, which was where I first got meeting with them. But outside of the career fair, RPI for me did not help me particularly, but that's not to say they don't help others.
Yeah, I guess to follow up with that, most of the opportunities that I obtained were just browsing on my own. I attended the RPI career fair for pretty much every semester that there's been, and I've talked to some great companies through that and had interviews with them. But the internship opportunity I had for my NASA experience was just something I found online. So I think there's definitely a mixed approach that you want to take by browsing opportunities that RPI offers, but also just things on your own, because the wider net you cast, the greater the likelihood is that you will, you know, get an opportunity that you're excited about and that you want to do. All right, the next question in the chat is, what study abroad opportunities are at RPI for aero engineers? Personally, I can't say that I know about study abroad. Study abroad is something that I never looked to explore. I know that RPI does support study abroad opportunities for its students, though, and that is an option that you can pursue for your Arch away semester. So I think those opportunities definitely do exist. But again, kind of going back to what we said earlier, just exploring what opportunities are there for something like that, if that's what you're interested in. Do either of you guys have anything to add for that? All right, the next question in the chat says, what percentage of students get the internship offers? This isn't something that I necessarily know the answer to either, unfortunately. I don't know the analytics for what percentage of students do get internship offers. But just from personal experience, knowing other people who are pursuing aerospace engineering, pretty much everybody that I know has been fortunate enough to obtain an opportunity for their summer Arch experience or just a summer internship in general. So I think that there's lots of good opportunities to do it, and RPI does prepare you well to obtain those opportunities. Next question is, can you talk a little bit about the course load for dual majoring in aeromechanical engineering?
Am I the only one that's doing it? Okay, so in terms of the Aeromec Dual, it's actually not as bad as you would originally think. So you take the original aerospace courses, and then you add on, I believe it is 4 mechanical engineering courses. Given 2 of them are slightly more intensive. I think it's EMD and I think it's a lab course or something along those lines. But it's not horrible. If you're well organized, it's honestly for 4 more credits to be able to add on the fact that you can say you're at least slightly involved within the mechanical engineering side of it. It's, for me, I thought it was worth it. I also came in with AP credits where it kind of subsidized that load, where it didn't make it too much worse. But without AP credits, if you're coming in, you're looking at 17 credits at every semester until you graduate, which is really manageable. As long as you're able to keep on top of your timing and everything, it's very doable. I wouldn't say it is at all something that was like so much added on work that it made it where I couldn't do like the other things I wanted to do.
Thanks, Chris. Next question is from Tyler. It says, do you get assigned a counselor for internships? So for internship experiences, I think it depends on the company. You may get assigned a mentor at that specific company. But if you're talking about the assistance you get from RPI, so specifically talking about the Summer Arch program, before you participate in Summer Arch, there's a pass-fail course that you take, which helps you prepare for that. So you work on resume skills, interviewing abilities, and topics like that, which helps prepare you for that. And then while you're on your internship or co-op, study abroad, research opportunity, you complete another course that kind of helps you talk about the things that you did and just make sure that your experience has been valuable and you're able to learn something while you're away. Do you guys have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I'd say beyond that, kind of the best thing that you get as a freshman, sophomore is your hub advisor. And those are kind of your best counselor in general things, because if you get to know them, they are extremely helpful, not only for classes, but stuff outside. If you spend the time with them, even just outside the mandatory meetings you have to get ready for courses for the next semester, they have a lot of useful information because they've seen and talked to so many kids that they have seen and heard so many things that they're extremely helpful for kind of just any general knowledge on applying for internships and getting information on them.
All right, the next question in the chat is based on my section of the presentation. It seems like it is okay to go into your freshman year with little to no coding experience. How would you recommend teaching yourself code, or what classes would you recommend taking at RPI? So yeah, I don't know about Chris and Sonu, but for me, I had no coding experience before I attended RPI. And I think that was something that I had concerns about after my freshman year, not because of the things that I learned in classes or that I had to use it for classes, but I just knew that eventually, given the way that the field is developing, coding would probably be a valuable skill for me to learn. So over that summer where I didn't have an internship, I just looked online and found, coding courses in Python and MATLAB that would help me develop those skills. And then there are courses that you take, during your time with the curriculum that, force you to use and learn those skills. So there's numerical methods in programming, which is a big one, and that teaches you Python skills. And then for my courses, some of my other courses, I've used MATLAB for homework problems and larger projects. But anything else to add for that, guys?
I think the only thing for me is I would not stress about not knowing coding coming in. If you know it, great, but you do take courses that are helpful in terms of learning coding, especially numerical methods. The only recommendation I would give is if you have the time outside of normal classes, that you're not necessarily explicitly taught MATLAB, but it's something that if you can take the time outside of classes to learn, it tends to get brought up more heavily in latter courses. So I would try and at least get comfortable-ish with it, by junior year, because once you start getting into some of your 4,000 levels, they do use it for homeworks and small assignments. So if you can at least be comfortable with it by then, it's a lot easier to deal with.
All right, the next question in the chat. As an aero, are you eventually forced to specialize or focus in either aircraft or spacecraft related engineering? When does this specialization occur? One of you guys want to take that? Yeah, great answer, Sonu. The next question, why did you choose to pursue engineering at RPI over other schools? Chris, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of came down to a couple of reasons. I didn't want to be too far from home, so I'm actually from Connecticut, and I want to be able to at least drive out to the school I was at without going on an entire journey. And the schools that kind of narrowed it down to were Clarkson, WPI, and RPI. For me, when I went there, WPI was a nice campus, but the aerospace program did not seem as developed as I'd wanted it to be. And then when I came to RPI, the professors that I had spoken to all gave me extremely good influence on the programs, thinking that it was very well set and that everyone there was extremely knowledgeable and comfortable with the work they were doing. So I knew that I wanted to go to a solid engineering school that had a good aerospace program, because I kind of knew going into it that was what I wanted to be a part of. So RPI was kind of, for me, the clear choice out of the options that I had.
I like the campus, so it was just overall a great fit for me. Next question, how strong does the RPI alumni's help in finding jobs or internships? So I think this depends on what organizations you may be involved with. So Engineering Ambassadors, for example, has a lot of great connections with Raytheon Technologies. So I think Sonu, you obtained your opportunity with Pratt & Whitney through that. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.